Sometimes, the person who seems to need a psychologist the most actually needs a conversation with their own soul. Welcome to Voice of Virtue, a space where every phrase seeks to unleash the storm living inside you, transforming it into calm, clarity, and inner power. Here, we don't repeat empty words. Here, we unearth truths that wound, to heal. Epictetus, a slave turned master of wisdom, didn't need couches, therapy sessions, or fancy words. He had something more forceful, a brutal and simple understanding of the human soul. And what he said didn't just feel like advice, it felt like a direct punch to the ego. When he claimed that it's not what happens to us that affects us, but what we think about what happens, it wasn't a pretty phrase. It was a strategy to stop being victims of life and start being responsible for it. This idea is so powerful that even many modern psychologists use it as the foundation of cognitive behavioral therapy, without knowing that Epictetus planted it centuries ago. The mind, he said, is fertile ground or a deadly trap. What you sow, you reap, and what you repeat, you create. Epictetus understood that human suffering isn't caused by events themselves, but by the judgments we place on them. He said what disturbs men are not things, but the opinions they have about things. And it's true. Two people can face the same tragedy. One crumbles, the other transforms. What's the difference? The interpretation, the story they tell themselves. That's why, more than offering external solutions, Epictetus taught how to rebuild the internal narrative. Today, we feel empty, frustrated, trapped, because we've forgotten this ancient and essential teaching. And what about control? We live in anguish over what we can't handle, the opinions of others, future events, health, the economy, even death. But Epictetus was blunt. There are things that depend on you and things that don't. Your only task is with the first. In that single sentence, there's more power than in years of complaints and accumulated anxiety. A psychologist might help you understand your trauma, but Epictetus pushes you to take responsibility. He tells you take charge of yourself, your mind, your will, your reactions. Don't expect life to be fair. Be the justice yourself. Don't demand to be loved. Be the love yourself. Don't beg for control. Master your interior. And when the ego screams, "I don't deserve this," Epictetus responds, "Who told you that you deserve anything?" That's the bitter medicine that heals the soul. We've become addicted to comfort, to pats on the back, to everything will be fine. But Epictetus offers something stronger, the capacity to resist, to grow, to stop being slaves to emotions. In his phrases, there's no sugar, but there is freedom. Today, we live in an era where everyone seeks validation. We post, opine, show off. And Epictetus, centuries before likes and algorithms, warned us, if you want to be invincible, don't enter competitions where winning doesn't depend on you. And isn't that what we do every day? We compete for attention, for approval, for status. But none of that depends on us, so we lose. We always lose, because the battlefield is outside, and the true Stoic warrior fights within. This is just the first part of our journey through these 9 phrases of Epictetus. But already here, something is stirring inside you, right? And discomfort, a confrontation, a clarity beginning to emerge. And that's exactly what this wise slave sought, that you awaken, that you open your eyes, that you take responsibility. And if you've made it this far, if every word has hit you a little, if you felt a battle inside between the old that wants to stay and the new that wants to be born, then don't miss what's coming. In the next few minutes, we're going to turn each of these phrases into a practical exercise, a daily tool. We don't want this to stay as words, we want you to live it. But before continuing, if this message is resonating with you, don't forget to subscribe to Voice of Virtue, because here we don't just reflect, we transform. Imagine waking up every morning with a single question: what depends on me today? That's the foundation of a Stoic life. It's not about ignoring the world or repressing your emotions. It's about directing your energy solely toward what you can control. And that, believe me, is more powerful than any modern self-help method. Try it. For 3 days, every time you feel anxiety, anger, frustration, or despair, stop and ask yourself, does this depend on me? If the answer is no, let it go. If yes, Act with total responsibility. This single sustained practice can change your mental health more than 100 therapy sessions. Now, let's take one of Epictetus's phrases into a powerful routine. Freedom is not achieved by satisfying desires, but by eliminating them. Observe how this works in your daily life. When you desire others to understand you, to recognize your effort, to love you as you love, you suffer. But if you eliminate the desire for recognition, what you do springs from duty, from honor, from your own integrity. So, every time you're about to act, ask yourself, am I doing this for my soul or for applause? Change the fuel, and you'll change your path. A very simple practice to put this into action is the desire journal. Before bed, write down everything you desired during the day, that someone would respond to you, that they wouldn't criticize you, that they'd thank you. And then write next to it, did this depend on me? This writing will help you see how tied you are to the external, and that awareness is the first step toward liberation. Let's move to another key phrase. Don't seek for things to happen as you want, but want them to happen as they do, and you will be happy. This isn't resignation, it's conscious acceptance. What would happen if, instead of resisting every setback, you embraced it as a teacher? When a flight is delayed, when someone betrays you, when you lose an opportunity, say mentally, this too, Epictetus trained for, and act from calm. This practice is called amor fati, and the Stoics used it to temper the soul, because what happens to you is shaping you. Here's a concrete routine. Chaos training. 1 day a week, do something uncomfortable on purpose. Walk without headphones. Talk to someone you avoid. Fast. Shower with cold water. Discomfort isn't punishment. It's preparation. If you train to tolerate small annoyances, when real pain arrives, you won't break. Let's continue with another gem. Remember that you shouldn't be ashamed to prefer being a beginner in the good rather than an expert in the bad. Do you realize how many times we avoid improving out of fear of seeming clumsy, slow, ridiculous? This phrase should be tattooed on the heart of anyone who wants to change. If you're starting to heal, to care for yourself, to leave destructive habits, you're going to fail, you're going to seem weak, you're going to have setbacks. And that's okay, because the only true shame is staying where you are out of fear of judgment. A practical exercise for this is what we'll call the Beginner's Manifesto. Take 5 minutes upon waking and write, today I allow myself not to know, today I allow myself to fail, today I allow myself to learn. This small ritual, repeated, reconfigures the mind and softens the ego. And now, let's address another essential phrase. No man is free if he is not master of himself. Here is the root of all modern suffering. We say we're free, but we're slaves. To our impulses, to the phone, to sugar, to drama, to the past. The freedom Epictetus preached wasn't political, it was mental. He was a slave in body, but absolute master of his mind. I want you to reflect on this now. What enslaves you? What habit dominates you? What emotion governs you? Choose one single thing this week, just one, and set limits on it. If food dominates you, fast for a day. If the phone dominates you, leave it in another room for 3 hours a day. If anger dominates you, stay silent every time you're provoked. That's the true revolution, starting to possess yourself. Each of Epictetus's phrases can become a discipline. They're not pretty quotes, they're tools for inner war. And if you use them consistently, you'll see how you start to become someone who no longer depends on what happens, but on what you decide to do with what happens. And remember, if each of these words has ignited something inside you, if you feel ready to go beyond reflection and enter the terrain of real change, subscribe to Voice of Virtue. Here, we don't come to fill your head with ideas. We come to empty you of what doesn't serve you, so that finally, you can walk free. Maybe today you don't see it fully. Maybe you think these phrases are just ancient, distant words. But there will come a day when the world brings you to your knees. And when that happens, because it will, it won't be a therapist who rescues you. It won't be a motivational phrase that lifts you. It will be what you sowed inside yourself. It will be your invisible training. It will be that voice Epictetus wanted you to develop. Your inner voice. Strong, calm, and free. Stoic philosophy didn't come to paint your life in colors. It came to give you a lantern for when darkness arrives. It came to remind you that you are not your fears, nor your desires, nor your emotions. You are the faculty of deciding what to do with all that. Do you realize what that means? That even if the world crumbles, you can remain standing. That even if everyone turns their back on you, you can remain faithful to yourself. That even if life doesn't give you what you think you deserve, you can find meaning even in the absurd. Epictetus said, "Circumstances don't make the man, they only reveal him." And it's true. The pain doesn't break you. It shows what you're made of. Criticism doesn't crush you. It reveals how strong or weak your ego is. Loss doesn't destroy you. It only exposes your attachment. Everything, absolutely everything, can be a mirror or a prison. You decide. And here's another brutal phrase. Don't explain your philosophy, live it. Today, we live explaining. Explaining why we act as we do, why we react that way, why we haven't changed yet. But Epictetus demands something harder. Congruence, silence, action. What good is memorizing these phrases if you don't embody them? What good is knowing that freedom is in your mind if you fill it with excuses? What good is knowing you can't control everything if you keep trying to dominate the world? This is where Stoicism becomes real, when you no longer talk about it. When you are it. When you start reacting differently, thinking differently, suffering differently. When you look at chaos and don't tremble, look at your wounds and don't hide them, look at your ego and don't obey it. That's why, now that we finish this journey through Epictetus's 9 most powerful phrases, I don't want you to memorize them. I want you to choose one, just one, and turn it into your shield, your sword, your daily companion. Write it down, carry it in your pocket, on your wallpaper, repeat it when you want to give up. Make that phrase your new personal prayer. And if what you've heard has ignited something in you, if something inside you is awakening, then I ask you not to let it die in routine, not to let this clarity fade as soon as the video ends. Subscribe to Voice of Virtue, not for us, for you. This path isn't walked alone, and because every day, every week, every word will be another spark to keep forging the best version of yourself. Share this message with someone who's struggling in silence, someone who thinks nothing makes sense anymore, someone who doesn't know these phrases yet, but needs them more than anyone. And to close, I'll leave you with this final question. What would happen if you decided to live as if nothing external could touch your inner peace? That's where your true freedom begins.